All right, welcome to Next Edge Studios. You are listening to the Keyser Cast. I am your host, Corey Keyser. Joining me today will be former professional athlete and certified holistic nutritionist, Keyen Lage. Keyen, welcome.
Corey, thanks for having me, man. Great to be on here and chatting with you.
Absolutely. It's a little chilly here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, but Keyen's joining us from Miami. How's the weather down there, sir?
Yeah, I'm wearing a jacket right now, so it doesn't properly represent what it is normally like down here. It's a little rainy today, but for the most part, it's 85 and sunny, and the humidity is going down a little bit now that the winter months are kind of coming upon us. So I could not ask for any better weather right now.
You're loving that 85 and no humidity. I'm loving this 49 and chilly weather, man. I wait all year for this.
I bet you do. I can see you got the plaid on, you got the long sleeve. You're ready for it. But you got the leaves changing though. That's one thing I do miss. So
that's right. Yeah. So Keyen is obviously, I shouldn't say obviously for those that don't know, Keyen is from Sioux Falls, so he knows it well up here. So, yeah, we miss you up here, buddy. So hopefully see you around Christmas time.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait to get up there and get in with the cold and see all y'all.
So Keyen, let's just kind of get into it. We're going to get into some of the things that you've kind of created diet-wise or protocol-wise. But first of all, I'd just like you to give my audience and my viewers a little bit of your background and share your story with us if you could.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Corey, kind of like you said, I was born and raised in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I spent the bulk of my life there. I ended up going to the University of South Dakota on a football scholarship, and I was actually a finance major there as well. I was there for 4 years, played college football there, like I said. I ended up getting to a position where I was the captain for 2 years there. And after I basically got done playing football there, I had the opportunity to play at the next level and have a shot at the NFL. I did not get drafted. I went undrafted, but fortunately had the opportunity for a tryout with the Kansas City Chiefs. I went out to Kansas City, and essentially, no matter how well I did at that time during the mini camp, I wouldn't be able to get signed due to the fact that there was too many guys in my position. So it's kind of how the NFL works for a lot of people that don't understand is a lot of times just a numbers game. So regardless if you're as talented as somebody else or not, the numbers don't match up. You're kind of screwed. So that's kind of what happened at the mini camp. Ended up going home and having the opportunity the following week to go to New Orleans and go to their rookie mini camp. I was there and everything was going really well and I was on track to get signed. And the last day I was running down on kickoff and actually tore my ACL. So prior to that point, I never really had any knee injuries or anything. And I think my body was just exhausted and I tore my ACL. And when that happens and you get hurt in camp, you basically get told, sorry, you're going home. And the team called my agent and said, yeah, we would have signed him. But since that happened, we can't really afford to do that right now. So I'm back home, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I'm still training my butt off, trying to get my knee to where it needs to be, to a place where it can at least pass a physical. That was the goal, to get to the point where I could run and cut. And like I said, to the point where it could pass physical to get into a camp. But I was also facing the challenges of not knowing if I was going to get signed or not. So I'm at home training, trying to rehab my knee, not knowing if I'm going to get a chance to sign. And I eventually hit my breaking point. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I broke down to my trainer and I'm like, should I just stop? Should I, move on with my life? And he's like, just keep going. You got this. You got this. And I'm like, all right, man, I'll keep going. And it turns out a week later, I ended up getting a call from the Kansas City Chiefs. This was the third preseason game into the season. And they called me and said, hey, all you got to do, Keyen, is come down, pass your physical, and you're playing in the fourth preseason game. And I talked to the general manager, and he told me, he's like, Keyen, I know all your family comes to your games all the time. You included, Corey. Thank you so much for being such an amazing support, by the way, with me. But he said, I know you have all your family come to the games. I have 30 tickets set aside for the Bears game, 30 tickets set aside for the Packers game at the beginning of the year. I can't wait to have all your family come to the games. And as you can imagine, I was fired up. And I got flown down to Kansas City, ready to start practicing the next day. I get taken to get my physical. And all they had me do was get two precautionary MRIs, one on my hamstring because I had some hamstring issues prior to the last season, and one on my neck because I had a couple stingers and stuff like that my senior year. And I didn't think any of them were a big deal. So I'm like, okay, let's do this. So I went to get my hamstring done. No problem with the MRI. But I went to get my neck done. Ended up going into the MRI machine and realizing that I couldn't do it. Like, I get really claustrophobic in tiny, tiny areas. And this MRI machine was literally half an inch from my chest. And so I was like drenched in sweat. I was like shaking. I'm like, I got to get out of here. So I pulled myself out. And at that time, she's like, okay, the lady that was doing my MRI was like, hey, if you're not able to do this, I can call the team to see if it's okay. And so without me even answering, she's on the phone with the team saying, hey, this Keyen, he's having a hard time doing the MRI in his neck. We got his hamstring. Is that okay if he bypasses the neck MRI? And the team actually said, yeah, that's okay. All we really wanted was the hamstring. So basically, she told me, she's like, Keyen, you don't have to do this MRI on your neck. Go ahead. The guy's waiting outside for you. Take you back to the facility. And I don't know what it was, Corey, but there's something inside me just like, Keyen, you have to do this MRI. So the lady that's doing my MRI told me I didn't have to do it. The team told me I didn't have to do it. But there's something inside me just like, do it. So I walked around the room, the doctor's office, for about 5 minutes, got myself hyped up. I got a drink of water. I'm like, all right, let's do this thing. And so she's like, you really want to do it? I'm like, yeah. And so I jumped in the MRI machine, lasted all 25 minutes, was, like I said, drenched in sweat. I don't know how I was able to stay in it. I was I felt so accomplished, felt so proud of myself for like sticking it out for the whole MRI. And I go back outside to the guy that's driving me around the facility. And when I'm on my high, he shoots me down with this super low comment saying, Keyen, I'm taking you back to the hotel. We're actually not signing you. So at that moment, I'm like, what are you talking about? This doesn't make any sense. Like, they told me all I had to do was pass my physical. I was ready to go. He's like, hey, man, sorry about that. That's how the NFL works. They just changed their mind. And at that moment, I'm like, there's no way this is happening. So I get on my phone, texting my agent, calling people on the team, like wondering what's going on. Nobody knows. Long story short, I get taken back to the hotel. I'm there for 2 hours not knowing what's going on. And all of a sudden, the general manager calls me and he says, hey, Keyen, you're probably wondering why it took me so long to get back to you. And I'm like, yeah, like, what's going on? And he's like, well, what we found on the MRI was that you had a gap between your C6 and your C7 and your cervical in your neck. And the surgeons, the doctors told me that basically if you would have played, that you were at a risk factor of 3.5 out of 4 to get paralyzed. And I had no idea. I was distraught. And, literally in 24 hours, I had the best news of my life and the worst news of my life dropped on me. And, ever since I was in third grade, Corey, I told myself I was going to make it to this level and play in the NFL. And that moment, it all came down. And I called my agent and he's like, dude, like, you're done. Like, you can't play. You can't risk that. And so that was it. So I fly out the next day back home and sitting there in my parents' basement. I got my finance degree, but I realized I didn't want to go into that field. And I didn't know what I wanted to do at that point. So once again, intuition kicked in. It was like, just go to the library, ride your bike there, stay there for about 8 hours a day and just read. So that's literally all I did for 3 weeks. I rode my bike to the library every day and just read. And one book led me to another. And eventually it led me to a group of books that were around the topic of something called epigenetics. And this book by Bruce Lipton, The Biology of Belief, what I would highly recommend to anybody, really just talks about how we have much more control over our physical future in regard to us not being victims to disease in regards to genetics, but also our future as a whole in regard to our thought process and how that all works. So I'm like, holy crap, this stuff is absolutely amazing. I want to be able to get into a position where I can influence people to talk about this. So I remember getting a job offer from a good friend, Austin Kiergaard. I think you're very familiar with him. And he offered me a job as a personal trainer about 2 months prior to that. And I called him back. And I'm like, yo, is that position still open? He's like, yeah, it is for sure. And I ended up getting the opportunity to personal train at a gym in Sioux Falls called Great Life. And it went really well there. I worked my way up to the top of the company really quick. It was an awesome opportunity, but I felt like I was peaked out as far as spiritual, mental, social growth, as far as a person where I was at. So I needed to leave. And I was supposed to move out to New York. That didn't work out. But in the process, I had already had a job lined up in New York for me to work at a gym called Equinox. And like I said, it didn't work out. So I got together with a good friend of mine, Devin O'Farrell, which you know as well, and said, hey, would you like to go somewhere that's not here? And he's like, absolutely, let's go somewhere warm. So we decided on beautiful, sunny Miami. And luckily, the job I had in New York, there was also a branch down here in Miami. So they called in, put a good word for me at the one down in Miami, and a couple FaceTime interviews later, and we got the jobs. And about a month later, we were in our cars, all packed up, drove down, and haven't looked back since.
What a journey, man. That's just insane. And one of the things that I got to ask you, and it's always kind of intrigued me, and I think I know the answer, but you go, like you said, from getting the worst news of your life, or the best news of your life, to the worst news of your life in such a short time period. And I remember you were really distraught about it, but that literally lasted days, maybe. I mean, a week. And I talked to you like the following week, and you were already super passionate about your next adventure. What do you attribute that to? I mean, most people, that could break most people. I mean, to the point where they're in a deep state of depression, talking about signing a lucrative contract, making all their dreams come true, and then you just get the rug yanked out from under you. I think it literally, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it took you like a week, and you're like, no, man, I'm doing this now. You know, what do you attribute that to? How do you do that?
Yeah, it was really interesting how that worked, but I will like to say for the record that I did bawl my eyes out that night and, cried throughout the whole night. And I fully expressed all the emotion that I felt from that. But really Corey, what I would attribute that to is never really allowing the sport in itself to define me as a person. And I feel like so many people get so caught up in that, with the things that they do, allowing those things to define them, whether that be an athletic event like football. Like so many football players, they let the sport define them, so they get wrapped up in it. And when it's over, they're unable to adjust to everyday life and to the next step, because their whole definition and their whole personality is wrapped up in becoming this one thing that they perceive themselves as and society perceive them as. So now that they're unable to follow along that path anymore, they're still that same person that they molded themselves into being, and they don't know what to do. And I never allowed that to happen. I never let my relationships be shaped around the fact that I played football. I never let my life be dictated around me succeeding at football. So I think that was what I attributed to the most, is that football may have ended, but I had all these other things. I had all these amazing relationships. I had all these unbelievable attributes that I gained from playing the sport. And I looked at it as, holy crap, a big piece of my mind and my brain has been taken, like pieces have been taken out. But now I have all these other things that I've essentially nurtured and established while I was playing football that I can fill in that space with. And that's kind of what happened. It was just like all these other things started to seep in, and it was amazing. And I just like took full advantage of the opportunity, and I really found my passion because I looked for the positivity in what happened, and it led me to the path I'm on now. And I literally, I couldn't be happier with where I'm at.
I would agree with you. I mean, you have a contagious personality, buddy, and you're a super positive person. And I think the mentality you just described, I think that's why your clients are so successful and why people gravitate to you for information, because you're not a guy that feels sorry for himself. You're not a guy to kick himself when he's down. You're a guy that gets up and keeps fighting every time. So, I think that's what people need in a coach and a mentor and somebody that's helping them with their diet or their lifestyle. So fast forward through all of that. Now you're in Miami, and now you're creating some of your own protocols. I know the one you've just recently came out with is the Total Body Reset Protocol. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's basically it's designed to combat what all other things in society agree with, and everything right now in society in the health and wellness field is these 3 weeks get ripped abs, 4 weeks lose 20 pounds, all built off manipulating the body to try to make it do something that it's not meant to do. And that's why nothing is sustainable now with all these diet plans and quick fix workout plans. So I created the Total Body Reset basically as a way to entirely reset your whole body with working with the way it's supposed to. And really the foundation of what I do and with it is fix the digestive tract. And a lot of people don't realize that that's the foundation of health. And so while most people are following protocols that work to just make yourself look ripped, I fix the inside first. And as a byproduct, everything else comes out much better as far as aesthetics. So it's really focusing on fixing the foundation of what health actually is, which is the digestive tract. That's where all disease primarily stems from. And so basically fixing it at the point of the problem, not masking any kind of symptoms.
So don't give it all away, but give us a little bit about kind of what you are expecting out of your clients during this protocol and kind of the do's and don'ts with this. I know you have a list of no's. You say, here's a short list of things you really need to avoid. I don't want to give too much away without people reaching out to you, but can you give us a little taste?
Yeah, absolutely. And first off, I'd like to address who it's for. And I've worked with a lot of people that have a lot of autoimmune conditions, people that are addicted to caffeine. I'm talking 6-7 cups a day. I've had somebody and now they don't have any and they have unbelievable energy. So people that have bad energy issues, people that have anxiety, people that have chronic bloating in their stomach, terrible heartburn. I've had worked with people that couldn't sleep at night because the heartburn was so bad. 3 weeks later, it's completely gone. Excessive gas. Like I said, the different rheumatoid arthritis is a big one that I've worked with people. Hashimoto's, psoriasis, ulcerative colitis, any kind of terrible digestive disorders. It's a laundry list. It's crazy, but it fixes, not fixes, but alleviates the symptoms of almost all issues people are having. But it's really if anybody watches the videos that have interviews of people that have finished the protocol, they all say it's very, very actually easier to follow than they thought, because it's not built around counting calories. It's not built around counting macronutrients. It's not built around manipulating the body or creating this massive state of restriction. But it's basically just giving the body what it needs to heal internally. And that can be a foundational piece of bone broth that I have. I have a total body digestive reset smoothie that I incorporate. But some people even say they're eating more food than they were before they even started the protocol, and they're losing weight like crazy, losing inflammation like crazy, and fixing their digestive issues.
And so, this is really, it's a reset protocol, but is this a short term or does this kind of get you up and running with what you should be doing long term? It's
both. It's a reset in regard to fixing your cravings, right? So what I do in the protocol is basically repopulate the gut, right? People talk about gut bacteria. And basically, whatever food that you eat the most of, that's going to represent what kind of bacteria are living in your digestive tract. And basically what that said is, Corey, the really interesting thing is the gut and the bacteria in your stomach actually communicate with the brain and tell your brain what to crave. So if you eat a lot of processed foods and sugars, the bacteria in your digestive tract are going to represent that. So they're actually telling the brain, hey, crave these foods. And so all these people are saying, oh, well, I crave this, I crave that. Well, in reality, it's actually not you the majority of the time, it's the bacteria. So killing off the bad bacteria and repopulating with high quality bacteria actually helps kill cravings. So it actually provides you with a long-term benefit of not having those cravings. But really what the foundation of it is, you learn what feels good to the body and what doesn't. And you learn to get more in touch with your intuition. And so almost everybody that finishes the protocol, a lot of them actually keep eating the way they were because it's entirely sustainable. But at the same time, they know what foods might cause them adverse effects. So it's empowering because they'll choose to eat some of these other foods, but they know what's going to happen if they do. And they also know, here's the beautiful part, is a lot of foods like quinoa, for example, or tomatoes, they cause a lot of inflammation when they're not prepared properly. So I also, at the end of it, in the maintenance phase, I teach people how to properly prepare foods to actually make it not as inflammatory on their body. So that's the thing, is at the end of it, a lot of people continue to eat the way they're eating, but it's empowering because when they add some foods back in, they know how it's going to interact, and there's not that helpless feeling wondering, hey, why do I feel like crap right now? They know why they're feeling like crap. So it's the empowerment side of it that makes it sustainable. And I followed up with people, and they're all doing extremely well. Obviously it's not ever about perfection in any way, shape, or form, but it's about knowing what foods are be good, foods aren't going to make you feel good, and living in a way that suits you best.
So, and you touched on one thing I do want to highlight. I believe Bruce has put up some links to some videos, and we'll drop them below or in the field where you can go look at them if you're a listener and you're curious. These are testimonials from folks Keyen has worked with that have had a variety of different issues from, and it's helped them with weight loss. It's helped them with autoimmune issues, just like Keyen was talking about. So go check those out. Get it straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak, and hear what these clients are all saying about this. But give us some no's, like you absolutely should avoid this food.
I like to speak unconventionally. I like to talk about things that mainstream sees as good, but in reality it's not. But first off, I'd like to say that there's not really a lot of, like, when they're whole foods, there's not a lot of good and bad foods. A lot of it's just the preparation. So for example, like quinoa, beans, and rice are very popular right now, but a lot of people don't realize the ancient Aztecs and Incans, when they used to prepare quinoa and amaranth, which is another ancient grain, they would actually go through a 4-day process roughly of preparing it. So they would soak it in water for an extended period of time. They would ferment it. They let it sit out in the sun and dry out and crush it up, because they broke down these harmful compounds that are found in plants that can cause a lot of inflammation in the body. Now, those things are called lectins, but not all of them are bad. But when not broken down properly, they cause a lot of issues. So like quinoa, for example, when not prepared properly, cause a lot of issues. Tomatoes, for example, are one of the worst as far as causing bloating issues with people. Like so many people I talk to, I'm like, dude, just eliminate tomatoes. And they're like, oh my gosh, my bloating went down substantially. So some things like that, even like eggplant's a big one. A lot of people don't realize. And beans, like beans that are canned, a lot of people think it's the fiber that causes all their excessive gas. It's actually not. It's the improper preparation of those beans that is causing that excessive gas. So I think a lot of people know the common culprits, right? I think dairy is a huge one. When it's not in its completely natural state, I don't want to get too in depth, but the majority of the dairy in the U.S. is from a cow called the Holstein cow, and it's actually a genetically modified cow. The original ancestral cows were not black and white. They were actually brown. And so that's why I work with a lot of people from other countries, like Latin American countries, and they have dairy all the time and have zero issues because they're coming from these cows, they're called Guernsey or European cows, that actually have a different kind of protein in them that is not hyperallergenic like the protein in these black and white or these Holstein cows. So it's actually, the problem is the Americanized version of a lot of the dairy that we have, not actual dairy, because there's a lot of ancient civilizations that have been having dairy for a very long time that have unbelievable health. But the growing and the raising of the dairy we have and the preparation of the dairy we have, like in the store, I would highly recommend staying away from. I think a big one also is wheat. A lot of people are very obviously familiar with wheat, but a lot of people think gluten's the only issue with wheat. But in reality, I've talked about it before, there's something called WGA. It's another protein, wheat germ agglutinin, that's found in wheat. So just because you have gluten-free bread does not mean you're in the clear. So with that said, if you're sensitive to those things, try to have them in moderation. Not saying you can never have wheat ever again, but guys, gluten-free or regardless of wheat, I know a lot of people think 100% whole wheat is good for you. No, it's actually not. I call it the whole wheat paradox. So that's a big one. Another big one is the oils that we have that cause a lot of inflammation. So a lot of people get a chicken breast and they go out to a restaurant. But in reality, they won't realize that this chicken breast is made in a bunch of really low quality oils, like canola oil, which a lot of people think is good, sunflower oil, vegetable oil, safflower oil, soybean oil. I would stay away from those oils and I would stick to like 100% whole fat, pasture raised butter or ghee. I would also do coconut oil, which contrary to popular belief, coconut oil is good for you. Now, a lot of people think it's not because some of the mainstream news that's out there. Now, I would not recommend having spoonfuls upon spoonfuls of coconut oil, but avocado oil is also good. So replacing those vegetable oils and canola oils with some of those other alternatives like coconut or whole fat butter or ghee or avocado oil. So those are some of the really big ones, Corey, and obviously a lot of the processed foods, but yeah.
So to get into some of that, so obviously I follow you on social media. I talk to you all the time. You're always at the farmer's market trying to get your local raised stuff and trying to get it straight from the source when you can to make sure it's really good quality. In the Midwest here, you can't go to a Whole Foods. We may not have a farmer's market. We may not have the things that you may have access to in a large city or an environment with a lot of diverse options. What do you recommend for that?
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up, Corey. Honestly, any vegetables is better than no vegetables. And if you can only get your hands on fresh vegetables from your local grocery store, that's fine. Don't let that try to, like, any news you hear about how terrible vegetables are when they're from a conventional source. Don't let that prevent you from buying those vegetables, because you're going to get a bunch of cheeseburgers compared to those vegetables. The trade-off's not worth it. So just because I might preach about some of the stuff regarding trying to get as close to source as possible and getting all non-genetically modified and getting from a local farmer's market, take it where you're at. So if you have access to those things, that's amazing, and take advantage of it. But if you do not, any vegetables is better than no vegetables. And if you can only get them frozen, it's better than no vegetables. So that's a big thing. But also, like with the whole dairy thing, a lot of people can get their hands on really high quality dairy. So I would recommend switching it with like a coconut milk, like a hemp milk, or even like an almond milk. But any of those I think are better than a dairy bought from the store. Also, at the same time, if you're on a budget and I talk about high quality meat all the time, right? On my protocol, you're not allowed to have conventional meat, which is a huge source of inflammation. What I would say is, because people think that, oh, well, I can't afford all that, getting the high quality meat. Well, I would say have less and invest in the higher quality meat. So like a thing of eggs from the store is like $1. Well, there's also high quality eggs in the store for maybe $6, and have like 2 a day instead of 4. We eat way more protein than we actually need. We're in a protein obsessed society that we think that we need more protein, more protein, more protein. When in reality, what makes protein valuable is the nutrients that come with it. When we're buying these quality, crappy sources of meat, you're not getting the nutrients with it. You're getting all the inflammatory properties, and the protein isn't nearly as essential as a lot of people think. So in a place like the Midwest, where you have venison, you have deer all over the place, right? Well, what things do you have available to you? Like, take advantage of that, because wherever people are at, the world's healthiest people, I say the world's healthiest people, and they're not all eating the same things. They all take advantage of the things they have where they're at. Some live off seal blubber. Some live off nuts and seeds, right? So it's all built around really getting as close to source as possible of whatever you have where you live. And that's why I think it's so important. Like, we have all this access to like the deer, and we have access to pheasant and all this amazing wild game. Like, I don't have down here that I would.
Hunt and eat your state bird, South Dakotans.
You're damn right, baby. That's what I'm saying. So, and same thing with the fish. Like, people have access to amazing quality walleye and perch and crappie, like all this high quality meat. Like, that's what people need to take advantage of.
Sure.
Or beef, for example. Like, there's beef. I know, like my parents know a farmer there. They get beef for like $3 a pound there. That's from like a local pasture raised source. So the sources are out there. But you just kind of have to look a little bit. And it's honestly, I can't get $3 beef here. I pay $9 a pound for my local pasture raised beef, right? I make it an investment that I do. So if you have access to that, take advantage of it. So that's really the moral of the whole story, is that whatever you have access to, take advantage of it. And also, any kind of vegetables are better than no vegetables.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think you hit on a lot of great points. I've been eating what I kill for, since I was born. My dad's been feeding me, all natural, South Dakota shot game. So, and you definitely feel the energy difference too. I've noticed that when you eat, like a deer steak, or you have ground deer with whatever you're eating versus the conventional meat from the store, it feels different. I mean, you can notice an energy burst. I don't know if scientifically that backs it up. Maybe you could shed some light on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Corey, that comes with a lot of the inflammation that induced properties that you're getting from this conventionally raised meat. And so probably what you're asking is, okay, where does that come from? Well, it comes from, one, we can start off with the steroids, the antibiotics, but also the highly inflammatory genetically modified foods that these cows and these other farm animals are consuming, right? They're eating this genetically modified corn, soy, and wheat, which is loaded with herbicides and pesticides. So in themselves, corn, soy, and wheat are genetically modified, are actually very fattening. That's why we feed it to livestock. And so you might not be directly consuming that, but you're consuming the meat of something that does consume that. So essentially, you are what you eat. Well, the animals that you eat are what they eat. So you're getting all this highly inflammatory, genetically modified corn, soy, and wheat. You're getting all these steroids that these cows are being pumped, these chickens are being pumped with, and all these antibiotics, which is one of the worst ones. I might add, like chicken. Chicken is one of the absolute worst as far as antibiotics. So a lot of the people that I work with that have all these different autoimmune conditions, chicken is one of the foundational pieces that can actually be causing and inducing some of their symptoms of some of these different autoimmune conditions. So that's kind of the foundation of why you feel a little sluggish or a little slow, is you're getting all these highly inflammatory things that aren't working with the way the body's supposed to work.
Very true. And I would just say for listeners out there, talk about pricing. You can get a in-state deer license for $40, man. You can go shoot 100 pounds of deer for $40. So, when you think about it like that, it's kind of a no-brainer to not have that on hand. So, especially if you live here, for people that are worried about where I get a good quality source, we've got all kinds of open seasons for game and hunting and eating it, exactly where that source came from. You don't have to question it. And there's been lots of arguments, and I would argue that that's way more humane than some factory farm where you got chickens stacked on top of each other, or you got these cows, all feeding off of the same thing. That can't possibly be healthier than going out in the wild and shooting something that's eating what it's supposed to eat.
Absolutely, Corey. You hit the nail on the head with that statement. And, a lot of people might call this woo-woo, whatever. But in reality, too, is you are actually consuming the energy of the animal that you are eating. So these animals that are living in literally a state of hell, they're living in a tiny little confined area where they're knee-deep in all their own feces, where they can't move around, where everybody's sick. All the animals are super sick. They're literally living under this super high state of stress their entire life. And so you think the quality of your meat is going to reflect anything different than that? Literally, there's hormones associated with feelings, right? When these animals are no different than humans, when humans have high amounts of stress, they release stress hormones. Animals are the same way. And their meat is holding a lot of the byproduct of that. And so, yes, you're getting all these, what do you want to say, the hormones that's being released with the animals, but the energy of that meat is extremely, extremely low. And that has also to do with some of the haziness that you have, because whether you believe it or not, you are taking on the energy of the food that you are consuming. Energy is transferred. So I don't care who you are, that can be proven. So that's another big component to it too, Corey, is the quality of the life that the animal lived is very important in how it'll interact in your own body.
Sure. This next one, I want to get to some questions from your clients. So I reached out to some of your clients. Some are just starting it and some are in the middle of it. And we've already actually covered some of these, but I just kind of want to go through some of these with you so we can kind of get some of this answered. And this is speaking specifically to your total body reset protocol, okay? So One of your clients is asking, what role do supplements play? Why are they suggested? What are key things to look for or avoid when getting supplements?
That's a phenomenal question. I think, God, it's so hard to tell what is high quality in these days anymore as far as supplements go. As far as my protocol, I do have supplements involved, but it's not conventional muscle building supplements. It all has to do with healing of the digestive tract. And so I know a lot of people will say, oh, well, as long as I eat whole foods, I can heal everything. Well, that may be true to some point, but we're putting in all these chemicals into our body. So we are going to need a little extra help to counteract all the damage that's been done by unnatural things, if that makes sense. So in my protocol, I have some supplements that help with the healing process of the digestive tract. One of them I'll recommend right now, L-glutamine product. A lot of people hear L-glutamine and they think muscle tissue, which is true, but a lot of people don't realize is that L-glutamine, actually a lot of it gets used up in the lining of the digestive tract to help with the repairing process of the lining of it. So that's one I recommend. Also, a high quality collagen supplement. When people hear collagen, they think hair, they think skin, they think nails. But what they also don't realize is that all your connective tissue is made of collagen, including the lining of your digestive tract. And so that's why I'm a huge advocate of a good collagen product. I like Great Lakes gelatin. A lot of people, very intelligent people I listen to, recommend it. But also bone broth. Yeah, I'm sure everybody here that's listening has heard of bone broth to some extent. But the reason why it's so important is because it provides a large amount of collagen to the body, along with many other nutrients, if it's from a pasture-raised, grass-fed source. But so you're getting a good collagen product with the Great Lakes collagen, but you're also getting it with the bone broth. So every morning I have all my clients start off with a big bowl of bone broth with some easily to digest vegetables. Also, I recommend a short chain fatty acid supplement, which, without getting too in depth, basically what short chain fatty acids are is the poop of the bacteria in your digestive tract. So it's a byproduct of the metabolism of the bacteria consuming the food that you're feeding it, which the short chain fatty acids are extremely beneficial. They've shown to brain health, but also colon health as a whole. So they are very, very essential to have those in your system right away to help with the healing process of your colon. So almost all the supplements involved in the total body reset protocol all have to do with some extent of healing and preventing and reversing inflammation. As far as supplements go as a whole, most whey proteins are crap. That's why most people that come to me, they're like, dude, I can't have a whey protein because it makes me have terrible gas. I get bloated. I feel terrible. And honestly, one of the only ones that I've come across that I've proven over and over and over again is Max Muscle's whey protein. And I know I can say for a fact that the filtration process they go through is the best there is. So that is the only brand of whey protein I will recommend. Now, people that are on my protocol, I have to do no whey protein at all. It's a complete healing part of protocol, so I eliminate it completely. So I actually recommend a good hemp protein powder, which I would recommend to expand people's minds to look into a little bit, a good hemp protein. But as far as if you're going to get a good whey protein, Max Muscles, Max Pro is one of the only ones that I've found that almost across the board, I've yet to find anybody that has adverse effects from having it. And, you know, it's kind of address the issue right away a lot of people have with it. With the sucralose that's found in the Max Pro, it's actually less than a third of a gram of sucralose in there. So a lot of people hear sucralose and they think, oh my gosh, it's terrible for my digestive tract, terrible for my health, which is true, but it's actually been proven that at that dosage of sucralose, it bypasses through the digestive system without being detected. So everything that's in their products is found to a T as far as health goes. So that's where, guys, if you're gonna have whey protein, Max Muscles, like was just shown on the screen, that's the one I recommend. But it's nowadays, Corey, there's so much garbage out there, and most of it is. So for the most part, if you can't 100% know that what you're getting is unbelievable quality, or know somebody that knows it's unbelievable quality, like reach out to me. I would love to be able to help anybody. If you have a question about a supplement, let me know. I know the people over at Max Muscle in Sioux Falls would as well. They're extremely educated. They'll tell you straight up, but it sucks. There's so much crap out there because it's all built off people trying to get rich, and there's a lot of crap out there.
And as somebody who's taken Max Pro for 6+ years, I can attest to what you're saying. I mean, I've had it in every flavor they have. Delicious, and it works for me. I don't have any adverse effects from it. I take it every single day, so I definitely agree with you on that. Probably have time for one more question. One of the questions was as far as if you have to get a vegetable, but it's a frozen vegetable, is that okay if that's what you have where you're at? And I think you already answered that. It's vegetables in any way are better than no vegetables, correct?
Certainly. And to add on to that, Corey, in regard to the frozen vegetables, a little tidbit for everybody out there that is eating frozen vegetables, make sure that you're getting the liquids associated with those frozen vegetables, because when you melt them, the water-soluble vitamins, vitamin B and C, actually seep out into the liquid. So if you throw out the liquid, you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So if you are having frozen vegetables, I would recommend having them in a soup form. So when you melt it, use the liquids that are in it and have them all in a soup form to maximize the nutrients that you're getting from them.
Sure. One more question from your clients, and this is, I've asked you this a million times too, and we touched on it a little bit, but your client says, I think for me, it's hard to know when I'm getting high quality food. Is organic enough when it comes to vegetables, for example? Is growing your own vegetables better than buying from the store? And I think just also, you know, you and I have talked about this a million times, the fact that, you know, the administrations get away with, this is organic. Well, what the hell does that even mean? You know, this is cage free. This is pasture raised. You know, talk a little bit about that and some of a lot of the confusion that's out there and the false pretenses about what you're actually getting when it says organic.
Yeah. You open a whole other can of worms with that. I could talk for probably an hour on that.
I'll give you 2 minutes on this one.
Okay, perfect. Obviously, yes, if you can grow your own, that is ideal. Like across the board, yes. But like I said, it's the stages of it, guys. If you can't afford to grow your own, you have the time to grow on your own, or have access to high quality, then go the next step down. And if that's regular organic, that's fine. If it's conventional, that's okay too. But like, for example, the cage-free, for example, I'll talk through eggs for a second. Cage-free, all that really means is that the chicken isn't confined in a 2x2 foot box. It's still in a little barn, butts and nut with all the other chickens, and it can't move. It's still eating all the genetically modified corn, soy, and wheat. But a really good one to look for if you're looking for high quality is looking for the pasture-raised sign. Cage-free doesn't mean a whole lot. Free range, same thing. It doesn't really mean anything at all. But looking for pasture-raised and non-GMO are two really good things to look for without being tricked. So, just because it's like for meat's example, if they say organic, that really doesn't mean anything. All that really means is that they're basically, they don't have steroids and antibiotics pumped into them. They're still eating genetically modified corn, soy, and wheat. So really, the food that the animal is eating is very important, and pasture-raised is one of the biggest things to look for with that. So organic pasture-raised is kind of the gold standard, but wherever you're at as far as price goes, that's I think you got to take it where you're at.
Okay. No, it was a really good brief rundown. And if you're curious about that too, I mean, like Keyen said, I think I talked to him about it for 20 minutes one day. That's a really big one that I think people should educate themselves on, because I think a lot of people think, oh, it's organic, I'm okay. That's not the case. You want to get on the phone or in touch with Keyen or somebody like him so that you can understand really what that means and the differences there. Just some other quick diet questions. These are ones that I know a lot of people have asked over the years. There's many different opinions on, and I just kind of want to get your take. The first one would be carbs. You've talked about having carbs in your diets and in your protocols, but there's the whole ketogenic diet or the whole no carb thing. Then there's people that say, no, you have to eat a high carb diet because otherwise you're not going to have your energy. Explain that to us. Where do you stand with that?
Yeah. First off, I'd like to say carbs are not the enemy. And this is the funny part about anybody that says carbs are the enemy, and without specifying what kind of carbohydrates they're talking about, I probably wouldn't listen to them. And this is the reality. Almost all the studies that have been done talking about fat versus carbohydrate, whenever they talk bad about carbohydrates in these studies, you got to look at the foods they're using in these studies. And what they're doing is they're using highly refined sources of carbohydrates. They're using breads, they're using pretzels, they're using bagels. They're not using high quality sources of carbohydrates. So we need to get that straight first, is that a lot of these studies that are done, they're not using high quality sources of carbohydrate when comparing them to fats. So let's get that out there as well. I'd also like to be able to differentiate mainstream good carbohydrates versus what I would actually perceive as high quality carbohydrates. The mecca or the best carbohydrates I think you can have are root vegetables. And that includes sweet potatoes, that includes purple potatoes, that includes parsnip, turnips, rutabaga, yucca. Getting in these different kinds of root vegetables. I don't know, a lot of people haven't even heard of some of those. But part of my protocol, really the only primary source of carbohydrate you can have is these root vegetables. So getting into beets, getting into carrots, like those sources of carbohydrates are going to be the best. And then below that, I would put lentils, I would put beans, I would put quinoa, I would put buckwheat, even oatmeal. But a lot of those need to be prepared properly. So soaking in water for 24 hours with your beans, your quinoa, your lentils, make a big batch at one time. And then I would highly recommend, if we can pull up a pressure cooker, I would highly recommend cooking all of your grains and beans in those. But as far as like rice, I don't have a ton of them. It is a good complex carbohydrate, but I don't really eat a lot of them. I stick to the beans, I stick to lentils, I stick to the root vegetables. I stick to high quality fruits like berries. Berries are like a foundation for me. I love blackberries. Aronia berries are one of the most antioxidant rich berries that are very abundant in the Midwest, which I don't have out here in the Miami area. My parents buy them by the garbage bag full. So if you have to get your hands on some aronia berries, that's huge. In my protocol, I have almost all of the fruits eliminated for the time being. But really getting your carbohydrates from high quality vegetables and root vegetables and beans and lentils and really quinoa or buckwheat or oatmeal, I think are some of the best.
Okay. And then the other one I have for you is you talked a little bit about it earlier. I'm somebody that my mom ran a coffee shop growing up. I love coffee. I have 1 cup of coffee a day, 8 ounces in the morning, black coffee. Good or bad?
Corey, the question I would ask you, which I'm assuming in your case is not the case, do you rely on it for energy, or do you use it for a community component, or just you love the taste? That would be the question I would have.
Like me personally, I do like really want it in the morning. I don't have a crash though. Like I literally have 8 ounces of black coffee in the morning to start my day. And I couldn't honestly tell you if I'm probably mentally addicted to it, but I don't really think I have a physical addiction to it. I love the taste, and it's almost like I'm up for the day. This is how I start my day. It's almost just my routine more than anything, but I don't experience that mid-afternoon lull or that crash that a lot of people get. So I don't know
That's it, Corey, right there. You said it. You don't get the crash and you don't get the cravings that you need to have another cup to keep yourself sustained for energy. You don't get headaches later on in the day because you have no energy. You don't feel like you're crashing and you need to take a nap because you don't have energy. So that would be the difference, Corey, is some of the world's healthiest people have a cup of coffee a day. Right? Same thing with wine. Some of the world's healthiest people have a cup of wine a day. But do you rely off the coffee for your energy? Are you using it for your energy? That is the question. And that's where I have people that go on my protocol that were having 6 cups of coffee, Corey. 6 cups of coffee a day, where they could not have energy without it. Like they literally went on these up and down course of the day when they got their espresso compared when they didn't. And after 28 days, Corey, they haven't had a cup and they feel great. But they do occasionally love the taste, right? So I know a lot of people, they'll do decaf now, but even by itself, a cup of coffee is not the end of the world. It can actually be very therapeutic for mental sanity, like getting yourself ready for the day. It's part of that routine. But really what it comes down to, Corey, do you rely on it for energy? If you can say you do rely on that cup of coffee for energy, you probably need to get yourself checked out because you have a lot bigger issues, including something people call adrenal fatigue. That's kind of the mainstream way of saying it. I won't get too in depth with that. But that's why my protocol is so important. It kind of resets all of those body systems. So you can just have a cup of coffee and not rely on it for energy.
I'm just looking at Bruce in here in the studio, Mr. Cup of Coffee himself. Bruce likes his coffee. So maybe we'll have him get a hold of you after this podcast.
I love a good cup of coffee too, brother. I do. But yeah, if Bruce is all good with having a cup of coffee and not crashing it all later, more power to him, baby.
I'm just saying that 6 might be a little light for me. I'm just saying.
That's rookie level, huh?
Yeah, no, it's not uncommon to see Bruce teaching a jiu-jitsu class at 5:30 at night with a cup of coffee in his hand.
The other day that was acai. That wasn't.
I did
wasn't
call
coffee.
you out on it, and it wasn't. That was my fault.
Get the SIE.
Okay, so our next and final segment. We just like to have a little fun. We call this segment rapid fire. Okay, so I'm just going to ask you some general questions. First thing that comes to your mind, just spit it out. Okay.
Okay.
Favorite sport?
Ooh, football.
I figured it was football, but you've been down in Miami. I don't know what you do down there with your free time. I didn't know if it was still the case or not. So
yeah.
Do you ever watch football anymore?
No, I actually don't. I don't ever turn on my TV, to be honest with you.
It's a good problem.
I love the sport. Yeah, I that was my initial reaction. But as far as like athletic activities go, I just like doing everything. I get bored so quick with doing one thing. Like yoga is something I love to do consistently. But I love like going for bike rides, dude. I love like going to do gymnastics. Like there's a gymnastics center around here. Like I learned how to do a backflip for some of my buddies the other day. Really just like anything that I can do to move. Like I lift once a week. So I just literally do a bunch of things that like get my mind like moving and thinking to where I don't get caught in a repetitive sense of the normal routine. But as far as movement goes, I like to walk. I like to do just really anything that's different.
Sure. What do you like most about what you do?
I can tell you, for me personally, changing people's minds and perceptions of themselves and the world. And that's really why I love doing what I do. The external body is kind of a byproduct for people. I don't like people say, oh, I lost 10 pounds. I don't really give a shit, to be honest with you. Because I know when people fix the mind and their perception on the world and themselves and learn emotional intelligence, which is the foundation for most people that I actually work with, which what's preventing them from being healthy is the perception of their own environment and of themselves. And it's crazy, Corey, but literally when I hear people say, people tell me I'm glowing. Like I have clients that say, yeah, like people said when I was walking with my head up higher and my shoulders more open. They said I was glowing and like that kind of stuff. That's permanent change right there. But when people start to make those changes, I know the physical body will handle itself. So when people tell me though their confidence is through the roof, they're able to walk around in clothes they never thought they would be able to because they weren't confident enough for it. Like when I hear those things that are sustainable long-term changes, like it's almost like like cocaine to me. Like it's like an addiction. Like it's unbelievable. When I hear people getting these long-term sustainable things, it changes their mind and outlook completely.
This next question should be easy for you then. Mental health or physical health?
Oh, mental. In a heartbeat. I agree. That's the foundation of all of it. And, we're taught as a society that you have to look a certain way and that you need to get ripped, you need to get jacked and get big. But it's not going to solve your problems. Like, it doesn't matter how big you get, it doesn't matter how ripped you get. Some of the most influential people being in the heart of the industry down here in Miami, these people that are super ripped and jacked, they're some of the most depressed people I know. And they put on masks and try to cover up with their bodies and say insecurities. But there's nothing sustainable about trying to manipulate your body and try to make it look a certain way because that's not natural. Like our bodies being at this super, super low body fat percentage is not natural. And mentally you can't sustain that because you once you stay at that spot for a certain period of time, your mind starts to think that's the norm. And when you gain a little bit of fat and you don't have that anymore, you go into get anxiety, you go into a depressed state. So mental health, and especially now, like it's starting to get more popular. But that's what it's all about. It's all about mental health and letting the physical body be a manifestation of the mental changes that happen.
Right on, brother. What's your biggest pet peeve?
All the all the mainstream bullshit information that is trying to sell people on quick fixes. Because it's actually hurting people more than it's helping them at all. Yes, you might have lost 10 pounds very, very fast and quick. But majority of the time, people gain that weight back, if not more. And what happens over time with people that follow continuous diets, they get less and less and less confidence in themselves. And so these people that are capitalizing and getting a quick buck off manipulating people into thinking that this specific program is best for them because it gets them short-term results is hurting people so bad. And so many people I've worked with, I've had to get over that hump with them because they've done so many diets, they've tried so many exercise plans, and all these people have promised to them all these results. But ultimately, those diets, those exercise plans failed them. And the problem is people think that they're failing the plans, which is not true. And so these people's confidence gets annihilated. So my biggest pet peeve is all the people in the industry that are fake, that are capitalizing off quick fix workout plans and diet plans that don't try to incite some sort of mental change within people.
Sure. What is one health myth that you cannot stand?
God, the first thing that came to my mind was the protein thing. Like I talked about earlier, like especially in today's society, we're just like so obsessed with protein, especially in regard to meat. Like we think we need to get all of this meat in, and especially in the Midwest, everybody's like, oh, I have to have my meat at every single meal. I need to have it. But it's simply not true. It's simply not true. And that's the thing is like we talk about ancestrally. Yes, a lot of our ancestors did have a lot of meat. Like talk about the paleo diet that people that live like eat solely meat. But the also reality of it is that our ancestors were moving around all day. They were living to move. They were migrating everywhere. They're picking things up, putting them down, moving all over the place, constantly in a state of motion. But in today's society, we don't live in that state. We get in our car, we go to work, we sit at work, we get in our car, come back home, we sit on our chair, we sit at dinner. We're not moving, so our body's not breaking down at such a rapid pace to where we need all of this animal flesh. And if anything, I think people need to put a focus on, if you're going to eat anything, I'd recommend moving towards organ meats and actually more fattier cuts of meat, not this lean meat because we're getting our protein. Like I said earlier, the nutrients actually of the protein comes in the fat. So if you're getting a super lean cut of meat, you're basically cut out all the nutrients that come with it outside of the protein, which is crazy. But so I recommend to people, salmon is phenomenal. Walk out salmon. You get sardines. You can get your egg yolks. Everybody throws out the yolks of their eggs because they just want the egg white protein. No, you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Get your yolks. If you're going to have beef, get a high quality source of beef that has all of its fat retained because that's what has all the nutrients. So make sure like the whole idea that we need to get our lean protein source in, I think is probably one of the biggest misconceptions in the industry.
Sure. All right, guys. So Keyen just broke it all down for you. Obviously this guy knows what he's talking about. This guy can change your mentality and your aspect on yourself, the things that you eat, the way you carry yourself. He's a passionate guy, as you can see. He's going to get you fired up to accomplish the goals that you need to. How can people get a hold of you, Keyen?
Yeah, so people can contact me through Instagram. My Instagram tag is The Connection. But also Facebook. I respond to everybody on Facebook. I respond to everybody. I try to on Instagram and Facebook, but there's my Instagram page right there. But also my name is Keyen Lage. You can just type that in, Keyen Lage on Facebook. And just reach out to me, guys. If it's a question of any type, if you want any kind of information, guys, I want to help, and I'm there to help. So reach out to me through one of those sources, and then if we want to or need to, we can go further. But Instagram or Facebook are some of the best, but also you can contact me through Instagram. I have my email on there as well as my phone number. So if I do not respond right away on Instagram, you can contact me via my phone number that's provided, and my email is provided on my Instagram page.
Perfect, man. Well, I just want to say again, thanks for doing this, man. We really appreciate it, and we'll talk later. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again, Corey. Really appreciate you letting me come on and spread the word. So thanks, man. See you later. All right. See you, Corey.